motion. Richard Holden.
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Deputy Chairman. I beg to bring forward a bill to extend provisions for automatic auto-enrolment to all job holders aged at least 18, to remove lower earnings threshold for automatic enrolment and for connected purposes. As the Prime Minister said today at Prime Minister's Questions, what we have seen over the last few years, working on from perhaps the time of the opposition and then introduced under the coalition government, is a huge increase in pensions take-up amongst the British population. We're now seeing 10 million more people savings for their pensions than we did before. An increase from 2012 of 46.5% of the population saving to 77.6% in 2020. By any stretch, this has been a massive increase and a huge boon to people in our country, really saving for the long term. Now, bringing forward this bill today is all about ambition. Not about my ambition, but about the ambition of people to look after themselves, their families, and also their communities. And that's something that I know that a lot of Red Wall MPs like myself and my honourable friend for Sedgefield really think about. They're ambitious not just for themselves, but for the towns and villages that they live in, from My Patch, Consett to Crook, Burnhope to Langley Park. These people are ambitious for the people, for themselves, but also for their towns, villages, and the people who live in them, their friends and neighbours. Many of those people currently are excluded from auto-enrolment purely because they don't earn enough money to be enrolled. And the reason for the other reason I mentioned ambition is because that's where the government's stated aim is at the moment. It's got an ambition to start to extend auto-enrolment by the mid-2020s. But as everybody who's ever seen some of those great comedy programmes, I remember Malcolm Tucker saying it in one of them, should doesn't mean yes. And I really want to see the government saying yes today to this. Because people need to know that this is going to happen. Business needs to be able to plan for it. Our country needs to feel long-term levelling up in action, and one of the best ways we can do that is to give that certainty to people that this is coming down the track and that their pensions will be there for them, providing for them. I'm very grateful to Onward, who've really helped me in the last few months, working with me on the report that they've published today, looking into some of the specifics that this bill will actually provide. And the key thing behind that is the £2.77 trillion that it would mean is invested in our pensions for people, lower paid workers and those younger workers, which it seeks to address. That's money which will be saved by people who are currently in part-time work or those currently in ages of 18 to 22 who don't qualify for auto-enrolment. And I just want to give a couple of statistics to the House just to highlight why this is so important. At the moment, 3/4 of those 22 plus are auto-enrolled into pension schemes. But under the age of 22, it's only 20%. That's people in work. So that's not the student, that's people in work. So it's a really big difference. That's the difference that auto-enrolment since 2012 has made. And for part-time workers, some part-time workers will earn over the £10,000 threshold, but for part-time workers, it's 57.8%, compared to almost 90% of workers in full-time jobs. So this bill, let's assuming that there's going to be a similar take-up, could see an extra 30% of the workforce who are part-time workers. Millions of people, mostly women, much more likely to be from ethnic minority communities, much more likely to be socially disadvantaged, have other burdens on their time, maybe carers. All of those things, those are the people who this bill really seeks to address and make a difference for. And where are these part-time workers? Well, the analysis that Onward have done shows exactly where they are. They're in places like Workington in Cumbria, or Hindburn in Lancashire, or Mansfield in Nottinghamshire, as well as large parts of the southwest of England, Midlands and northeast and north of England. So they are in areas of the country that more broadly are seeking that levelling up, transformational change. I'd just like to give a few short examples of the people that we're looking to really help. A full-time worker on the national living wage would gain an extra almost £100,000 into their lifetime's pension, a 60% increase on today. Younger members, every single person working, the average person working full-time on a living wage between 18 and 22, paying just a few £100s a year, literally a few pounds a week in between 18 and 22, would see another £25,000 in their pension at retirement. They pay literally around £1,000, £1,500 in, and they have £25,000 coming out. And that's because you're looking at compound interest between 45 and 50 years being saved up. That's going to make a transformational difference to people's lives in retirement. A worker particularly, and this is the ones that really get to me, workers with 2 part-time jobs. 2 people earning £9,000, maybe working 12, 16, 18 hours a week in my constituency. At the moment, they don't get the real benefits of auto-enrolment at all. Maybe a woman doing 2 different jobs to juggling around childcare. She would see her pension savings triple under this proposal, from under £100,000 to £300,000. Think of the transformation for that woman aged 65. With £300,000, she might be able to give a deposit to her kids and also have a much more comfortable retirement than she would with the savings that she's got at the moment. The change that's been made so far by the government in auto-enrolment and its expansion has been fantastic. But now we need to go that step further to help people who are the backbone of our country. The big differences, I think, are also particularly stark, because that woman earning £18,000 a year working 2 jobs at the moment doesn't get the benefits. But somebody earning £180,000 in a job does get the benefit. She doesn't get that tax benefit, but that other person does. How can it be right that we give tax benefits to members of this House or well-paid people across the country, but we're not giving it to people working part-time? It just doesn't seem fair to me. Just before I wind up, I'd really like to thank the Pensions Minister, a member for Hexham, I know is ill today, so can't be here, and also the Minister who's going to respond in his place, because I know that this is something that we've talked about, and I know that the Department have that ambition and are looking at. And I'd also like to thank the Secretary of State and her team, who I've also talked to about it. I'd like to thank James Blagden and Will Tanner at Onward for the huge amount of work that they put into this report over the last few months, and has been really welcome to bring out some of those key numbers and key statistics. I'd also like to thank Aviva, who did, with some of their actuaries, some of their help behind the scenes on it as well. And that's been really very welcome, because trying to drill down into some of these pension numbers and how things impact people over decades is sometimes very challenging. If we really want to level up for the long term, this is a serious piece of legislation that could make serious change. I sat recently in the private members' bill, and there was the Pensions Minister stood at the dispatch box, and the honourable member who's bringing forward some of the changes said that those changes were initially thought of being brought forward in 1978. Then they were thinking of being brought forward in the late 1990s, and it's only now that they're being brought forward in a private members' bill. What I don't want to see is that this long-term levelling up measure, which would really benefit some of the lowest paid in our society, is also slips because there's always a reason not to do it. I think the answer is that we've got to table the legislation now so that business can prepare for the future. If we're going to build back better after this COVID pandemic, there is no better way, particularly of helping low-paid workers, many of whom, in constituencies like mine, will have been working in the care sector, will have been working in the retail sector and hospitality throughout this period, and they are the ones who will really directly benefit from this legislation. This legislation would transform the lives of millions of working people, but working people not in great jobs, but in low-paid work, who are the backbone of our country. The Prime Minister said in the constituency of my honourable friend, the member for Sedgefield, that the votes were lent to us at the last general election, and we've got to deliver for those people. I think this is one of the clearest ways that we could deliver for those people. And, Madam Deputy Speaker, I beg to bring forward the bill.